All right, and we are back, and it is time for the ElseViews. This is the segment where we talk about the things that we have seen, or read, or whatever over the past week. And I'm gonna go first because I know we both saw this and continue the dialogue of going back and forth and talking. I'm gonna talk about the last crossover for the Flash and Supergirl with the that led into the Kevin Smith episode of Supergirl this past week, which was awesome, and the latest episode of The Flash, which was also really good. But this was called Dynamic Duets, and this was the musical episode. This was the reunions galore throughout here because you had the Glee reunion with Grant Gustin, Melissa Benoist, and Darren Criss, who came in playing the Music Meister. But then this was also a Star Child Productions reunion because Darren Criss and Carlos Valdez went to the University of Michigan, go Blue, and were in the theater department and did the Harry Potter musical thing, and some other different productions and stuff like that. And then you had pointed out on Slack there was another reunion thing in here with Grant Gustin and someone on Supergirl, right?
The gentleman who plays Monel this season on Supergirl and Grant Gustin went to they were theater majors together in college, and that was just kind of a weird little thing. Although the person who played Monel did not actually sing in the episode. He's one of the few people who didn't get to express that. But I don't know, as a theater major, I don't know if that necessarily means that he sang in theater or if he just acted in theater. It may not have been his thing. It seemed like there were a couple people that were there and were specifically left out because they weren't actually singers, but they wanted them involved in the story. And then there were other people who just didn't even make it in the story at all. Like Caitlin wasn't in the dream sequence in any regard, which was a weird thing to see skipped over. People who were actually from the show getting so pushed to the side, I guess because there was no villain for her to fall in love with, but or anybody who will just tragically die. Caitlin has such shit luck with men that she might as well be dating Oliver. But be that as it may,
you're saying all these things, and I'm like, he hasn't seen the latest episode. He hasn't seen the latest episode.
I ain't seen shit. I watched this, and I'll tell you what. Yeah. This was pitched quite a while back. I was surprised at how long it took to get to it, and it was both very delightful in the fact that it's showing off how multi-talented these people are. And it was also a glaring example of the reasons why I stopped watching these shows.
Yeah.
Because it seemed like, from what I picked up, Barry had recently broken up with Iris because he couldn't keep her safe. So he's like, no, I'm just like, I guess he proposed to her and then broke up. And then it's like, and it's all wishy-washy about it. And then some bullshit's going on with Supergirl and Mon-El because she conveniently forgot that Jimmy Olsen was like her one true love at the beginning of this season. And it's like, but we're not able to make it work. And then this whole episode was written just to make them all work out again. And that's one of the things of like, oh, we have to get to this point to tell this one story that we really want to do. So all the rest of this shit will just get cleaned up right here so that we can get to the next factoring point that we need to. And it just seemed, it seemed very Glee. Glee would do that all the time, where it would change people's personalities or motivations per episode. That seems to be standard with anything that Ryan Murphy writes. It's just like, oh, well, last episode, it doesn't matter what we were doing then. What matters is right now. which is okay.
Previously ons.
If you enjoy the show, then it's okay. You get it. And most of the stuff he does it with is comedy. But it is one of those things that I find very tiring. And just in general, the melodrama stuff is fine, but it's all very pat how it comes back together. and on top of that, there wasn't a lot of depth. And the
Yeah,
whole Music Meister thing, he wasn't a Music Meister at all. He sang a song, but he mostly put them into a fucking movie.
true, true. So I came at this from a different thing because I'm still watching all the shows, which is like I said, realized when you said the whole when you went on the Caitlin Snow tirade, and I'm like, well, she died this past episode. Wait, what? Who said that?
Oh.
Yeah, she died on this last episode. So the following episode, she dies, and they remove the necklace, and now she is full on Killer Frost. Which I might have a little bit of problems with that of seeing how it plays out the next episode or so. But yeah, it did have that, so I'll explain a little bit of the backstory stuff. So you saw the beginning of the Flash where they were, he's trying to prevent Savitar from killing Iris by going about the, basically doing a reverse flashpoint of, instead of going back and changing something, changing stuff that he saw from that will happen in the future. And so in they did like a Kid Flash caught this guy and all, and one of the things that he did was he proposed to Iris because she didn't have a ring on her finger when Savitar killed her. So that was part of it. So she broke up with, or she called off the engagement with him. And then like he also sort of understood because, she was upset because she well, do you love me, or is it because you don't want you want to protect me? And then Barry's like, well, it's a little bit of both because I love you, so I want to protect you. And so I figured, hey, put a ring on it, and it might change up the future enough, stuff like that. Then getting here, the Jimmy Olsen thing with Supergirl, I think what ended really quick in season 2. Like they haven't hit on that.
No, it was almost immediately. It's like first episode of season, like the whole first season was she's pining away for Jimmy, and then they get to the kiss at the end of the finale, and then the next episode, the first episode of this season starts up, and she's like, I don't know how I feel about this Jimmy Olsen guy. And it's like, none of us know how we feel about the fucking Jimmy Olsen guy.
Yeah.
But now he's going to go off and be a superhero over here with Wynn and some other fucking person. And you just go pick up any alien tramp you meet on the side of the fucking planet. I don't care.
Hey, I'll let you know he's a prince, sir.
Yeah, I literally do not care. Mon-El is one of my favorite characters from the comics. And I just know, like Mr. Terrific, they're just going to do everything they can to fuck that up with these shows. And
so you would say hashtag not your Mon-El?
No, I would say nothing. I got to the point at the winter finales where it's like, hey, we're on a break. I'm like, no. You're all broke. I'm done. And it's sort of liberating, like anything else. Like giving up a show when it just frustrates you more than you enjoy it feels really good. But I was curious to see the musical episode because I love musical episodes. I loved it on Buffy. I loved it on Scrubs. Yeah. And they're all various degrees of how good they are. Certainly the singing talent of this was very good. The songs range from like staples of like, here's songs that you've heard before, to a couple originals. One of them was co-written by Rachel Bloom from My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. That was a Super Friends song.
Yeah.
And I thought everybody was like, wow, this is really cheesy. I'm like, yeah, but it looks like it was supposed to be cheesy. And it's fun and it's funny, and it's the two of them, although it seemed really Barry heavy. Like a lot of the stuff was about his life and I'll be your super friend and I'll be there in a flash and I get all the good jokes. But the final song at the end, which was the teenage girls are going to download this shit on iTunes tonight. It was fine. It was all perfectly fine. It wasn't terrific music, although it was terrific performances. And as far as the episode, it was pretty man, I just like it. A lot of it was just, here's all these people who play these characters, and we're not going to do anything with them as their characters. We're throwing this whole singing thing into an alternate reality that has no bearing, really, except at the end, we get the princess getting kissed by the prince, and vice versa, the prince getting kissed by the princess, to wake them up like they're fucking Snow White and shit. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It went seriously hokey.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I look at this with where I could see this going in the future, like if they do like how they do the crossovers, the big crossover events once a year, or however they're going to do them. I sort of see this going, because Music Meister's still out there. That's the one thing that they didn't do that they did in the beginning of the Flash. Is like, oh, let's kill all the fucking villains. So he's out there somewhere. So I could see
but
him.
He's also not a villain.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
he seemed more like an imp from the fifth dimension. He seemed more like Mixablick.
Yeah. So I could see him, coming back, and for like this, for whatever reason, and stuff in the future. But this did remind me, strangely enough, of Glee before Melissa Benoist was even on it, because I did not know her from Glee, because she came on post the Britney episode. So
yeah, I didn't know any of these people from Glee.
Yeah, like Grant Gustin and Darren Criss had just came on when they were on for like a season or half a season or something like that when I left, and all that. But no, I did enjoy the show. I mean, it reminded me of what I loved with the last crossover that they did with just the Flash and Supergirl, which it's the lightness that Barry can have, because this whole season he's been very dark.
Yeah, no
and
shit.
It's like, and this one it's like, hey, remember, he can be light, and it's sort of doing that same thing with him. It's like, hey, I can be more optimistic, not my name's Oliver Queen and I kill people.
Right. And that's part of what killed these shows for me, was that, I mean, Arrow was already a slog, and I had left Arrow in the middle of the third season and then came back to it because of all these fucking promises of the fourth season. And it's like, no, we're still dicks. We don't give a shit what you think. And fine, I'm nobody. I'm a guy with a fucking podcast. But Flash was fun. Flash was a fun show. It may have been dumb at times, and it may be that they can't seem to get past having a fucking mysterious speedster villain every fucking season, but it was a fun show. And this season was just so fucking rotten from the very beginning. Like the relationship between him and Cisco breaking down, and just the constant beratement of like, oh, not good enough, and like, but here's fucking Wally, we'll make Wally into a Flash somehow, and fucking the third time Wells, it's like, no, we've had enough Wells. I love Tom Cavanaugh, I love him on the show, but I didn't need H.R. Wells. I was happy enough with the guy from Earth fucking 2. And if we were gonna explore another hero speedster, then I would have rather had Jesse than the fucking Wally thing happening, just because like Wally wanted it bad enough for some shit. But all the light and happiness stuff seemed to go from Flash over to Supergirl.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, is I don't think it's possible to have Flash be around Supergirl and to not cheer the fuck up, because Melissa Benoist, she fucking exudes that. She has that kind of innocence to her. She has that constant hope to her, the kind of shit that you want associated with a Superman or a Supergirl character. She has that. But Flash should have that too. In the comics, when the fucking multicolored lanterns took over everything, Flash was a blue lantern. Flash symbolized hope. Supergirl, for some reason, was a red lantern, but that was a different fucking Supergirl at that point in time. Flash seems like somebody who should be a less dry, dark character. And I'm not a fan of how they've done this season. And so that's part of why I walked away.
No, yeah, and that's understandable. And again, that's
And
where
there are things that I'm like so excited. I'm like super excited to see Cisco vibing and shit. I don't quite get what they're doing with Vibe, but I'm like, fucking cool. You know, just do shit with him because I love the actor and I love seeing Vibe get some fucking due finally because I remember Justice League Detroit and all those characters suck balls. But Vibe gets like this resurgence and shit. It's great.
And also it's cool because, you know, this is Carlos Valdez's first, like, really only thing he's done in Hollywood. Like, that's big. You know, like you look at his IMDb page and it's The Flash, Arrow, you know, Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl. You know, that's it.
But I feel like they're almost Felicitying him, which is Felicity came into Arrow, and first of all, the first strike against her was she wasn't Black Canary, and so there's the faction of people who are like, well, Oliver can't be with Felicity because she's not his true love, even though Laurel Lance doesn't exist in the fucking comics, you assholes. Neither does Sarah Lance. Black Canary is a completely different character. And look how well they fucked that up because they're going on their 5th try at that character coming up.
Yeah.
But so they took Felicity, who was a great character, who was beloved, who was fun, who was like the ounce of light that you got once a week in the midst of the shit show of everything Oliver and everybody else. And they broke the shit out of her. They made her miserable 90% of the time. They made her harp on Oliver at times when he didn't need harping on, and then put up with his shit the times that he absolutely needed someone to fucking put him in his place. No, that's why he got Diggle. So they ruined what was one of the best parts of the show, and I feel like they're trying to do a lot of the same things with Cisco this season, and it's fucking dumb. It is why ruin something that is so good and that so many people are into, other than the fact that I think they just don't know what to do with some of these characters. So yeah, whatever. I'm glad I watched the Duet because it was a bright shining moment in a sea of I can no longer give a fuck.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, where I am sad to hear that at the same time, I mean, you know, this is why I love doing the show, because there will be the differences of, you know, how, you know, with how you have and how I have things. You know, I wouldn't even say it's like optimist and pessimist. It's, you know, you're more pragmatic and I'm the opposite of pragmatic. Sort of deal.
We have different
Yeah.
desires of what these shows should bring us. And I am constantly wrong. I am easily wrong enough of the time that people should probably just take my opinion and flush it, because the show's doing very well. You know, all these shows are doing very well. They're doing incredibly well for the CW. They're doing very well in general. I have nothing to say that is like, if you enjoy Flash, you're fucking stupid. No, not at all. I want to enjoy Flash. I did enjoy Flash. I just hit my limit of where I could no longer enjoy it. Now, part of it is 4 shows is also a lot more to keep up in. And when they start doing crossovers and stuff, and you want those moments to happen, it means you're paying attention to stuff that you maybe wouldn't pay attention to if it wasn't attached to these other things.
Yeah.
Would I watch Arrow if not for the relationship to the other 3 shows? No. Would I watch Legends of Tomorrow? Probably would have stopped in the 2nd season pretty early on because it's been a mess. There's things that I like, but it's a lot of hard to follow story for characters that I somewhat enjoy.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this. We are so off of what we were originally talking about, but
yeah,
I'm liking Legends of Tomorrow for the Doctor Who parallels that they're doing. Like you
which
look
is
at,
hilarious to me because look how much I love Doctor Who these days.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like you look at the episode where they were, where Jax and Canary were in, and White Canary were in Rip Hunter's mind, and I'm like, this is the Doctor's wife. You know, we're getting to the episode where it quickly becomes the Doctor's wife, where it's I think it was the first one that Neil Gaiman wrote, where it was the TARDIS personified as a living being, you know, talking to him, and stuff like that.
Beatmaster saying they overdo the homages, and that's exactly what I think. Is that it's one thing to do a play on a story of something else, but it's another thing because we always have known that the Rip Hunter character, as displayed in the show, and using Arthur Darvill to play him, is a serious play off of Doctor Who as it is. So then to take one of the very popular, well-received episodes of Doctor Who and try to do your version of it, first of all, you ain't no Neil fucking Gaiman. You never will be. Second of all, try something else. Try something to make it that you're not just the ripoff that is also ripping off in the midst of your ripoff.
Now, I want to point out here because we're missing something here because Beats also saying it's close to a serial ripping off. He forgot the quotes around Rip.
Okay.
He's Rip Hunter.
I was just going to do, yo, dog, I heard you like ripoff, so I put some ripoff in your ripoff so you can rip off.
I'm sorry. I was really hunting for that pun there.
Yeah, no, that was good. That was solid. That was definitely better than the writing on most of these shows. But again, my fucking opinion.
No, yeah.
I am usually mistaken.
I mean, hey, much like assholes, everyone's got an opinion. So, tell us about this book that you've read.
Yeah, so instead of watching TV and bitching about it, I read a book.
Yay!
And as I just said, my opinion means shit. I'm gonna recommend this book, and you have to decide now which Corey you listen to. So I recently switched podcast apps that I use, and one of the high points of going off of Stitcher was that there's certain podcasts that just weren't available through Stitcher. That I was able to get through this other one. Now I'm finding that there are some other ones that I'm having a hard time getting through this new one, and it's pissing me off. Yeah. Fucking iTunes should not be the go-to for podcasts. It's bullshit. But one of the podcasts that I was able to get back into my rotation is this one called Writing Excuses, and it's 4 authors, and often they interview other authors, and it's 15 minutes of them giving writing advice. And it's really good. And I listened to it years ago. And then when I went to Stitcher, for some reason, the feed stopped and I never updated again. And that's my writing excuse.
Got a $5 credit for that, by the way.
Well, I have no idea. But that's my writing excuse, is I couldn't listen to writing excuses. So anyway, I finally got to listen to it again. And the first episode of me being back in it, they interview an author named Linda Addison, and she is a poet. And listening to it, and they're talking about the beauty of language and stuff, and how to make poems happen. I find out that she's a horror-themed, Horror poet, as opposed to, like, you know, your average. I think that I shall never see.
Roses are red, violets are blue.
The tree that those fucking dogs are barking at outside. And I'm like, oh, that perked me up a little bit. So they mentioned she's got a new book out, which is a mix of poems and short stories. Now, I don't read a ton of poetry. I wrote a lot of song lyrics when I was a teenager. That's about as close as I got to doing poetry myself, because I wanted to be a musician for a long time. But I was interested because the book alternates. It starts with a poem, does a short story, another poem, another short story, and goes that way throughout the whole thing. And I thought, okay, well, that sounds intriguing. So I picked it up. The book is called How to Recognize a Demon Has Become Your Friend. And it's $4.99 through Kindle. We'll have a link in our show notes. If you want to pick it up, it'll help out the network a little bit if you use our affiliate link. And it's pretty damn good. And I read it in a week. Like I do when I finally get a hard on to read, is I like to throw myself into this. I just restarted The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I was a little bummed to break away from that because it's exciting to read that book again after so many years, and probably my fourth time going through them. But I wanted to give this a shot. Now, one of the things that I noticed halfway through the book stops having a sort of supernatural / horror theme, and it starts to get into sci-fi. I didn't know this. She also does some sci-fi writing, and the sci-fi stuff didn't appeal to me as much, except for one story. But most of the stuff, the poems are short. They're about a page to a page and a half each. So while there's several of them throughout the book, it's you get a sort of breather in between each of the short stories. And if you're not into poetry, they've got a good meter. They're pretty simple. You're sort of in and out, and it might help you build an appreciation for how poems are written, how a certain style of poetry is written, because there's very many different styles of poems. And it's light in the way of poetry. So if the poetry isn't your thing, don't let that scare you off, because there are some good ones in this, and there's also some really good short stories. One of the short stories I was just about to mention was the one sci-fi one that really did appeal to me. It's called Artificial Unintelligence, and it's about a woman that is arguing with the artificial intelligence that is put in place at her company that is in charge of human resources. And the human resources artificial intelligence has determined that because her last name is spelled differently than how their records have it, meaning they've added an E and she doesn't have an E in her name, that she must be an imposter that is stealing this person's identity. And so it's just an argument back and forth between her and this AI through emails, and she has to go and get on her neighbor's email because it auto blocks her at some point, and it sends police to her house because they assume that she must have kidnapped the real person. And it's just such a great thing to me because I work in IT. I work very closely with HR. I see how things like the ADP systems are in place and stuff. And it's funny because we've recognized this here, how Google has no human contact for when you have a problem. So it's just go through the automated shit over and over again and hope something happens, that it gets back to you and fixes things. That's where we're going. And this story really reflected that well for me. So I cracked up through this one.
Yeah.
The other stories, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but there were two short stories that actually go together. One of them is called Power. It's pretty early in the book, and the other one is called Miles to Go, and it's Miles with a Z. I'm not exactly sure on that, but the first story is very classic gothic horror feel. It's about a couple young girls, Angelique and Brenda, who are staying with their grandmother. Angelique discovers while staying with the family that she has magical abilities that Brenda and her grandmother already know more about. So it's kind of teaching her on that. It's a ghost story with some possession stuff and an exorcism, and it's pretty classic in that regard. And it's good. It's a good, solid story. And I was like, wow, these are interesting characters. I would like to see more of this. By the time I got to about the last third of the book, we get to this other story called Miles to Go, which is about these characters, but now they're adults. And in the shift from the first story to the later story, it goes from being classic horror to horror with a science fiction twist. There is an integration of magic with science that is being explored in this. There are things like an artificial intelligence that is in a music instrument that Angelique uses in her daily life as a musician, but Brenda can fine-tune the machine. So they have a relationship that's still kind of built on interaction with each other and interaction with magic, but it's magic mixed with science. And that one becomes more of a kind of a kidnapping type of story, but it still deals with magic for the most part. But there are things like a laser knife and other things that are just sort of mixed in that changes the feel of the world, but you're already kind of pre-involved from knowing these characters from the first short story. And that was very interesting to me because a series that I've been trying to work on and I'm hoping to get back into is a series of stories about a a young character, but I want to go through different points in his life, and like I want to kind of go back and forth because a lot of the stories deal with memory and the activity of memory and how we remember things and stuff. And I find it interesting that this jumps in such a huge way to this other point with these characters. But I'd like to read more of these characters. I'd like to see more of their lives growing up together or their lives individually and dealing with the magic stuff. And again, the magic was more intriguing to me. The supernatural stuff was more intriguing to me. But I wasn't necessarily put off by the science fiction elements as they were introduced in this other story. It's just would reading more of these characters in the middle portions of their lives deal with the transition of the world from the simple sort of semi-gothic New Orleans version to what is the later version where there are artificial intelligent things involved in it. Overall, the book is pretty good. I think maybe 60 to 70% of the stories I really enjoyed. That includes the poems. And the other 30%, especially the more science fiction stuff, wasn't quite what I was into. But I definitely found that the book is worth it to me. She's a great writer. She is a 4 times Bram Stoker Award winner for her different collections. She's certainly well known. It was just my first time ever hearing of her, and I just decided to give the book a shot. And so it's called How to Recognize a Demon Has Become Your Friend. The first poem and the last poem in the books actually use that title for them. So it's kind of like the poems at the beginning, and then she does maybe an extension of it or a rewriting of it at the end. So they're different, but they do kind of tie together. And it's by Linda Addison, and it's a solid recommendation, I think.
Nice. Well, that is going to do it for the ElseViews. We will be right back.